Welcome, everyone, to a special baseball edition of On Texas Football. I'm Blake Monroe, where I'm joined by Bobby Burton and CJ Vogel. And today we welcome a very special guest, Longhorns head baseball coach David Pierce. Coach, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Blake, I appreciate you guys having me. Anytime we can promote Texas baseball, it's exciting for me. When we start talking at this time of the year, we know we're getting close too. So we're in our 8-hour individual period through today, and then we start our team segment tomorrow. We're excited.
Coach, you had a good year last year, ended on a fly ball at Stanford. I know that had to break your heart, broke a lot of Longhorns fans, but 3 of your 6 years that y'all have finished a season, obviously COVID, one of your years unable to finish, you guys have ended up in the College World Series. And that's kind of the standard set well before you came, whether it was Coach Garrido, Coach Gus, even before him.
Yeah.
As you look at and have taken over the Texas program and baseball program and made it yours, what is the special mystique about Texas and baseball that you think just really resonates overall?
Yeah. Well, let me kind of back up. I think, to put yourself, like, you look at our philosophy of just overall team concept, our goal is to kind of create an opportunity to have a chance to be in that hunt to win the national championship. And so it starts with consistency, and to be able to get in and be consistent, be healthy, guys get hot, be at their, have your best baseball at the right time of the year is so critical, and to build from the start to the end. And that's the one thing I look at the back end of every season is, do we really have any real regrets? Did we not develop a player? Did we feel like guys underachieved? Did we maximize them? Did we play well as a team? And you look at 21, we make a hard run, finish third in the country. 22, we're back there, and then this year we're basically a pitch away from possibly going again. And I look at this team, and I was so proud of them because, yeah, we understand the standard of being in Omaha, but we had no regrets for the simple fact that this team was living, and dealing with some of the things that the 21 and 22 team did. They were so good. And they were in the shadow of that team. And the last weekend of the regular season to sweep West Virginia and to win the league was pretty special. And you could see them kind of take the identity of who they are now as a team. And that's what's exciting when you're at a place like Texas, where everybody knows that there's that chance. There's that real aspiration of playing for a national championship. And it's pretty relevant or pretty evident throughout our building of that's the goal, that's the plan. And so that's the standard. And it's been created by a lot of people, from our history to our current coaches and players and support staff. So, yeah, it's very exciting. I still go stand in center field and look up and go, this thing's pretty neat, and I think that's something that as a coach you can take for granted because you're in that world every day. And so you kind of put yourself in a freshman's shoes when he walks in and that aura of dish vault and the history. So you're trying to really take pressure off of players instead of putting it on them, because they put so much pressure on themselves because they know the history.
Coach, I have a question for you. You were talking about identity, and every year you guys play a very tough non-conference schedule. This year, obviously, no different. A lot of preseason top 10 opponents in y'all's schedule, especially at the first half. How important is it to play those opponents early on to, not only get ready for conference play, but also to find that identity?
The entire fall, the early spring, all you do is play against each other. So when you pitch well, you're like, I don't know if we can hit. When you hit, I'm not real sure we can pitch. So you're always your barometer is always about playing against each other. And so when you go into some hard tests early, you really find out who you are and how you handle it. And I think we find out pretty soon. I want to be good at the beginning of the year. I want to continue to get better and be great at the end of the year. And so 21. I mean, you can go back to the ice storm and we go into Globe Life and we just got it handed to us. We weren't ready to face 95, 97 and some of the best teams in the country. But we left that day 0-3, knowing we learned from this weekend, we're going to get better. And our game's so different because you play so many games that we need to win early, but we need to understand how to win early to be in those positions late. You look at a West Coast team that does a lot of small ball stuff. So you bring that type of team in here and kind of get exposed, or hopefully you're prepared for it. Then you play a team that really swings the bat really well, or some quality pitching. And so you just kind of you measure yourself and just try to get better.
Coach, thank you for joining us. I'm sure you're well aware of the Big 12, kind of the preseason awards that came out yesterday. I wanted to focus on Will Gasparino and his kind of addition and incoming talent to this team. What have you seen from him so far since he's arrived in Austin, and what can Texas fans expect for him on the field this season?
Yeah, his dad works for the Dodgers in their scouting department. Andrew Friedman also played for me in high school, the president of the Dodgers, we've created a pretty good relationship with those guys. But Billy's a really good baseball man. And you look at Will, it's pretty interesting because Billy's about 5'9" and Will's like 6'7", and we're like, that's pretty interesting. But Will is such a talent, but he came in with an injured foot, and so he was really slow in the making in the fall of just getting healthy. And we felt like take care of it early. Being in the building, trying to kind of clean up some stuff in his swing. When you're that big, you're still growing in your body, and there's some length that he needs to tighten up. But he's going to be an exceptional player. He really is. He's got this motor about him. And he's, there's guys that have talent that maybe don't work as hard, or there's guys that have talent that, they feel like they kind of already have things figured out. I mean, he's wide open to coaching. He's going to be an exceptional player. Not as fast, but kind of reminds me a little bit of a Drew Stubbs back in the day.
Wow. Coach, what do you think the strength of the 24 team will be?
I think our depth is really good, and we have some options off the bench with some team speed, some left-right type matchups. And then when you look back at what happens with our program, our college baseball, as you guys know, you have the portal in front of the draft, and there's a 3-week period that you're not 100% what's going to happen in the draft. We had 5 guys that we got back that we didn't expect to get back, and 3 big arms. When you look at Tanner, you look at LBJ, and you look at Charlie Hurley, which all 3 have even gotten better this fall, which I'm really excited about. So I think we have a chance to be pretty good on the mound, especially starting pitching, and then kind of to see how those roles develop. We're going to get Heston Toll back. David Shaw is back. The guy that hopefully people haven't forgotten about, Luke Harrison, had 39 appearances through to live hitters for the first time yesterday. Best I've ever seen him. So there's some really promising parts on the staff, just how we get them into roles and how quickly those guys, develop into those roles. But offensively, we have balance. You look at return of Peyton and return of Porter Brown, Jared Thomas, Jalen Flores. Jalen Flores made huge strides from the back end of his freshman year through the summer and where he is right now. So there's a lot of good pieces. I think we have the ability to be a complete team.
One player that I wanted to ask you about, Coach, is a Duke transfer. Excuse me, my mind went blank there. Luke Storm, the first baseman. Yes. Can you tell us about how he's looked so far for you guys?
Well, it's an unusual situation because we never really had a midterm transfer because most of them are not eligible unless you're a grad transfer. And so getting Luke in here and fast forwarding what we do, and we put a lot of pressure on him defensively, and I feel like, and Luke will tell you, he's a little behind defensively right now of just kind of the speed of what we do, but he's going to be good. I mean, he's a switcher, 6'3", 6'4", 225. I mean, he's a presence in the box. So I can see him in the middle of the lineup. If you look back at like Mike Antico and Skylar Messenger, both of them started really, really slow. And you got to trust their history. And that's the one thing with those guys. They come into a new environment. They want to prove themselves early. And you just need them to understand they don't have to force anything. They're really good players. And so Luke is kind of in that category. High character kid that, it's got to be a special kid to come in at midterm in this culture and to fit in. And I think he's a great fit.
Coach, you mentioned the starting pitching, specifically Tanner Witt. I think a lot of Texas fans were very excited to see him back on the field late last season, working back from his injury. What have you seen from him this offseason? Can you expand just a little bit on what we can expect this upcoming season as well?
Yeah, well, let's go back to the spring because I think Tanner was so excited about trying to be a part of that 23 run. Probably got a little fast forwarded. You get to 120 feet, you feel great, you go to the bullpen, and then you're in live competition and conference and then in the postseason. So honestly, physically he was ready, but he just wasn't really there yet at the time of the year that we were in. And I think he was searching a little bit in the summer. So we just had a lot of good conversation, a lot of good, trust with each other, and said, look, we're going to slow play this throughout the fall. He didn't pitch in the fall. We conditioned. We worked more towards getting his body back to moving the way it was, getting his arm path. Now, there's so much information out there, and everybody wants to help, but at times it hurts. And so we just kind of went back to the basics with him. I like where he is. I think he's still a little tick below his velos, but he's really moving well. I like where he is. I think he's going to be a big factor for us.
Good deal.
And then the bullpen, I know you kind of touched on it a little bit ago, but who are some of the guys that you're really hoping or expecting to step up, whether it's Ace Whitehead or, any of the other names on that you have? Who are the ones that you're really hoping to count on this upcoming season?
Well, I think you mentioned Ace, and Boogie's such a guy that has versatility. He can start a Tuesday game. He can extend a 3-inning outing. He can go close for you, and he's athletic. He can handle the running game, handle the short game. Big guy from San Jack, Gage Bame, really has some pretty good arsenal. Another kid, Grant Fontenot, just getting them to speed at Division I baseball. Both of them are JC transfers. And then you look at pieces like some veterans like David Shaw. Big Red is getting it going. He's so different. He's like a Chris Sale with about 8 miles an hour less. if we could get a few more miles per hour, he can dominate. But he's just the ball runs, he cuts it, and he can pound the zone. And I think you look at 6 or 7 guys we're looking at as starters, like a Luke Harrison, a Chase Loomis, that if they're not in that category, they bump into that middle relief where they can extend, just utilizing those guys that way. But really, I like those veterans with a couple of those big arms. And then we've got some interesting freshmen, not many, but guys that I can see being thrown out in a non-leverage situation where they can get their feet wet and understand, like, okay, I got this, I can do this, have success, and then now maybe create a little bigger role. So good pieces there, though.
Coach, I think it's amazing we've made it this far without mentioning Peyton Powell and Porter Brown, but I wanted to get your thoughts on their, return to the lineup and how deep you ultimately think, this 1 through 9 can be for you in 24.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with both of those kids is that it doesn't matter if it's left or right. Their splits are actually backwards. I mean, they hit left-handers well. And so that's exciting. You never know. The draft is there's just no exact science to it. And then you get to a point where guys have a request of how much money they would really accept, and they have a good option of coming back. So getting those guys back, their veteran leadership, and just they kind of just have this edge about them of something to prove. Um, Being that deep in the postseason, being everyday guys, man, that's huge when you can share that with younger players. So I'm very excited both those guys are back because I mean, they're just ballers. I mean, they know how to play the game. They know, the intensity of 4 or 5 games a week and what it takes out of you. So the pacing and taking care of their bodies in between, and then in go time, ready to go.
And then, Coach, obviously catching. I know you guys got Kimball back. How excited are you to have him back, and what are you expecting at that position?
Kimball came in behind Silas, and we saw this. I like the way this is kind of laying out because these guys have been able to follow a pretty good catcher and kind of learn the work and learn the pitching and learn the philosophy. And Kimball was able to do that with Silas and had some spot starts. Unfortunate injury, but now he's healthy and ready to go. But same thing happened with Ryland. And you bring in Garrett, and he learned a lot. He got some time. You always think you can go back to the kind of the quarterback scenario. If you have 2, you don't have 1. Well, I feel like we have 2 guys that are equally can equally be productive in different ways. And so we're going to utilize both of them. And I told both of them, and you just don't get overly concerned about your offense. Let's be as good as you can be behind the plate and understand that both of you are going to play a lot. There may be a time in the course of the season, maybe out of the gates, where one gets really hot and you just stay with it, you ride it, and you got the other one. Great attitudes, pull for each other. But again, we don't have the Silas. We have 2 guys that we feel really comfortable with. And they're great workers and they're great teammates. That's what you need. You need that leadership behind the plate that creates a comfort for your staff. And I think both those guys have that ability.
Last question, Coach, before we let you out of here. First off, with that quarterback metaphor, we might have a spot for you here at OTF whenever your coaching days are up. But I wanted to ask you.
Sports junkie, man. I like competition, period.
Well, it was spot on. I liked it. I wanted to ask you kind of a holistic recruiting approach question. When you're obviously recruiting talented baseball players, what else are you looking for? Kind of the intangibles. Is there any leadership details that you like going into? What are some of those characteristics that you're searching for when on the recruiting trail?
Man, you hit it because, you can have a lot of talent and be a showcase player and not fit in a team atmosphere and not be productive. So you kind of watch guys when they fail. You watch them in their adversities. You watch them with their teammates, how their teammates react to them, how they react to the success of their teammates. You can read their body language. You can see how they move around on their first steps in between pitches. Are they vocal? Are they they're kind of in their own little world, or they're in competition. And that's tough to recruit in baseball too, because we really don't get as many looks as we would like to get. I'm glad that we moved it back to junior seniors and not trying to recruit 14-year-olds or guys that haven't even got on their varsity team in high school. We've kind of kept that philosophy, but at the same time, the system was pushing us early. And then just trying to figure out, we're kind of outside of just the developmental freshmen because you have that portal in the background. So we want to really continue to build off of the best freshmen in the country, like a Gasparino, a Borba, a Tommy Farmer, some guys that have come in this year, but then have the ability that if we lose 5 of those guys in the draft, that we still have the ability to utilize the portal. I would like that to be a little bit flipped with portal and draft, just so we know what our needs are. So sometimes we get a little log jammed in, like this year we started with a heavy number because of what happened in a good way, but then it gets a little log jammed. So, it's just the unknown that's a little frustrating. But there's a lot of things that I think you can just read. When you look at pitching, I mean, I'm looking for guys that are strike throwers too. They spin a breaking ball. We all want 95 plus that spins a breaking ball, and everything's clean. But those guys are first rounders.
I got you. Coach, thanks so much for your time today. Pleasure to have you here. And I got to ask you, or I got to tell you, actually, I love your hat. I'm a big hat guy, and I love that hat, man.
Well, I appreciate it. Real quick on this hat, and it kind of coordinates with what we do every day. When we finish a meeting, I say horns up, and the kids say hook them. If we're in a group meeting on the field, that's how we break it out. That goes back to my old football days as well. We always break it out.
I love that.
All right. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate your time, dude.
All right, hook them.
All right, best of luck this week.
Thank you,
Best of
Coach.
luck this year,
All right,
Coach.
thank you.